Xbox, Xbox, Xbox. Let's talk. What up, viewers? What up? What up? Today is Friday, July 24th, and that means it's time for a quick recap of the week in video game news. Starting off with what happened yesterday. So, yesterday morning, Xbox had its video game showcase talking about all the games that they're bringing to Xbox Series X. And they started off really strong because they're talking about the game that everyone wanted them to be talking about. They talked about Halo Infinite. They just kind of introduced it, and then they dropped straight into gameplay. They kind of, you could hear the ambient sounds. They were definitely trying to hit your nostalgia with that. They jumped in. They opened up the map, which really showed like this kind of open worldy feel. I still don't know if it's true open world or if it's just like you have a small area and you can like go to one of two places to do a mission or something. So I don't know how the open world's actually going to react with this game. Besides that, they showed him running around and picking up all the familiar guns that you're used to. The one thing that I'm kind of stuck on is like if there's going to be RPG mechanics, how does that work? And I think I read a couple articles talking about there being like an upgrade system. So that's cool if they can get that to work. Or I hope that the RPG system is fleshed out and not just kind of tacked on. They showed off some more gameplay. They showed the game. The game looks beautiful. I know a lot of commentary around it was that it didn't look as good. It was reminiscent of the original Halo game, and all the good or bad graphic quality that came along with. I didn't think of anything. I didn't think it looked too bad in the moment, but people started commenting on it afterwards. They showed his new like grapple ability, I think, or a new upgrade. He has like a tether, he has like a tether he can shoot out, and they were showing how you can use that for gameplay. You can tether a barrel and then like throw it at the turret guy. You could tear it a person and like bring him up and then like punch him. So they were just showing off a cool new mechanic that they're bringing to it. With the kind of like Widowmaker kind of like tether. So that was cool, and it was good to see. I really need a little bit more information about how deep it's going to be, how open world is it going to be, but it was definitely hitting all of the nostalgia. It was definitely tingling my nostalgia bone. So looking forward to Halo Infinite coming in holiday 2020. Next, they slowly spent less and less time on each of the games, which I thought was interesting. They really started off with a big bang, but people kept following along and going along with the showcase. The next game was State of Decay 3. At first, I thought it might have been the Walking Dead game that I think Focus has been working on, but nope, this was State of Decay 3. Not too much. They kind of just gave us a story. They showed like a winter snowy area. So I wonder if there's going to be seasons in the game now. I think in the last one you were like doing base building stuff. So I wonder how they're going to iterate on State of Decay 3 from what they did for State of Decay 2. Next, they had Don't Nod, one of their recently bought studios. They are working on a game called Tell Me Why, which is, since it's Don't Nod, is very Life is Strange. I think you play as one of two twins, and your mother committed suicide. So it's got all that like heavy, emotional feeling that you would get from like a Life is Strange type game. They also confirmed the launch date for it was for the first episode is August 27th. So, just next month, we're going to be playing the latest game from Don't Nod. So I'm looking forward to that. They had a whole section dedicated to Obsidian. I think just one guy came on and he just talked about everything that Obsidian has coming. They talked about the next DLC for Outer Worlds. I think it's going to add a planet or two. So there's more for you to do in the Outer Worlds, which I could do with a little bit more of. I think the game was only like 40 hours to begin with, and I kind of wanted more time in that world. So I'm excited to see more Outer Worlds. They talked about Grounded, and they showed a little bit more gameplay of that. Grounded is the Honey, I Shrunk the Video game, but they're really leaning in on the survival aspect of it. So like it's definitely like a survival base builder game, and you're going to be building like you know, bases and defending them from ladybugs and ants and all that kind of stuff. So the game actually looked really cool. Um, I've never thought too much of the game from all I've seen of it, but this whole like survival aspect really got me thinking about it. So it looked really good. And then last for the Obsidian section, they talked about Avowed, which was their like first person like sword and sorcery kind of Skyrim like game, RPG game. They just at first the trailer didn't really do much. That you just watched an arrow flying for like 60 seconds through this world. But then they actually got down into like showing maybe a little bit of in-game footage of like, you know, a dragon coming around the corner or fire coming around the corner, and then you pull out your sword and you could get the feeling for that like first person RPG. And I think a lot of people have been waiting for Obsidian to work on an RPG again. So, well, I guess they just did Outer Worlds, but like a sword and sorcery kind of RPG, a fantasy RPG. So I think a lot of people were excited about that as well. They also brought on Destiny. They talked about how Destiny 2 is going to be on Xbox Series X, and how I think it feels like the partnership is coming back together. I think some of the skeletons are starting to get buried. Some of the bad blood between Bungie and Microsoft is starting to wane. They just talked about how they were bringing Destiny 2. Destiny 2 had its whole God, what is the next expansion called? Beyond Light, something like that. And they showed off the new element. I think that's what I saw was there's the new element, which was like everyone will have ice powers now. And they showed off like building walls with ice powers, kind of like May and Overwatch. So kind of these kind of like walls and like building more obstacles into the game means that you're gonna have a lot more stuff that you can do in Destiny. So that kind of got me excited for. Moving right along, they jumped into Darktide, and I don't think anybody kind of knew what this was at first, but they just had these like group of soldiers running around, and then all of a sudden they turn around and they see a bunch of like a wave of creatures that they're gonna try and kill. It finally dawned on me when I think one of them said Imperial, and then one of them was holding a plasma gun, that this was a 40K game. This is a Warhammer 40K game, and it's pretty much Vermintide, but with the 40K IP, and you're gonna be playing a first-person shooter against, with all the things that come with Vermintide, where you're just gonna have waves. So I'm really excited about this. I really like the Vermintide games. The really Left 4 Dead feel that they bring. But I like the melee combat in Vermintide. Even if you're playing as like the elf and shooting a bow, like it's very much centered on melee combat. So I saw Fat Shark, and then I was like, oh, this is a Warhammer game. So yeah, I'm excited for Darktide. I think that's one of my secret favorite games. One of the less undersold games from the showcase. Next, they showed the Medium. I think this one really felt like trying to show the raw power of the Xbox Series X, because it was rendering two worlds at the same time, and that's what you're doing as the Medium, is like you're playing as this girl. I thought she was like Control. She looked a lot like the main character in Control, but I also thought it was an Alan Wake game at first, but definitely was not that. But yeah, so for the Medium, you playing as a girl who has who lives in two worlds at once, and so in one world you're like facing this like upside down looking this like upside down looking world that's all demented and tortured, and then you're also walking around the normal post-apocalyptic kind of world so yeah, this one really felt like this is using the full processing power of the next gen consoles, because it has to render two worlds at once. The one thing I was concerned about this is the normal world person gonna feel unique enough to ever be worried about what's happening there, and not just more interesting stuff happening in this like upside down grotesque kind of Cronenberg place that the Medium is in. And last but certainly not least, they left it on a stinger, and oh my god, I'm so happy about this. So they had this like pixie going around. They're talking about this world that lives in magic. and then the pixies running around, and you kind of had this like Jim Dale kind of voiceover talking about like this world of magic and how you're living in this world of magic, and I just like something kind of tingled, you know, with the narrator and talking, and then the pixie gets eaten, and then by like this ugly frog, and it's like, oh well, I guess you died, and just like that kind of humor like really struck me, and then all of a sudden it just, you know, just kind of like pans up, and you see this castle on the far ground in this green world, and it just says Fable, and I lost it. Oh my god, I'm so excited about this. There have been rumors about a new Fable game for a long time. I think I've even commented on them, but I haven't heard anything in the past year or so, I think. So, oh my god, I am so happy that there's a new Fable. I have played literally every Fable game. I am so excited for it. Even the Connect game, even the asymmetrical dungeon builder game that they released on the Xbox One. I am just so excited for the latest Fable. Fable is one of my top 3 favorite video game franchises. So, I'm just so excited for it. So, and then actually the last thing was everything they talked about. I only covered about half of them, but everything they talked about, they just kept beating the drum of it's coming to Game Pass. You're going to be able to play this day one on Game Pass. Like every game that we talked about is going to be on Game Pass day one, either as an exclusive or as a timed exclusive. And man, they are selling Game Pass hard. They are definitely pushing this whole Game Pass angle, and I think it's working. Like people talk about Game Pass like it's this great deal, and you know how much you're really getting for it. I use it to play like the latest games. Like I played Outer Worlds with it. I know Plague Tale was a couple months behind, but you know I still think of that as like playing a recent game. I bought an Xbox Xbox One X. I started playing Gears of War 5 Gears 5 immediately on Xbox Game Pass. Like, you know, so I use it to play a lot of these like upcoming games, and I could see a lot of people doing that, or if they just keep it running to like play some back catalog games. I've used it to go back there. I'm looking forward to like the Wasteland 3 coming out on Game Pass. So I definitely use it to like play the latest and greatest games, and they're definitely like hitting that, like buy it to play the latest games. Like this is gonna be where you get people in. And so and like the whole xCloud, you know, getting slightly off topic here, but the whole xCloud approach, like they're definitely trying to get a new market. I think they're really, rather than trying to sell boxes and compete with PlayStation on a level of just consoles, they're now trying to sell a whole new ecosystem. So with xCloud and Game Pass and Xbox Live, so I think they're just, rather than playing the console wars, I think they're just playing their own game, and I think it's gonna work. But I'm an Xbox fan through and through. Yeah, so looking for. I was excited by the Series X. I was excited by the PlayStation 5 reveal. I don't really want to comment on which one I think is better, other than I grew up as an Xbox fan, so all of these kind of notes definitely rung true to me. So yeah, and I think anytime you say Fable, you're gonna have my heart, 'cause I love that game series so much. So looking forward to the Xbox Series X coming later this year with some rumors. I think I saw a couple of articles talking about November. That's where I had it pegged, was November. So moving right along, Nintendo had a Direct Mini this week, which again, a different name. Like I talked about this last week, where there's Directs and there's Treehouses and there's Mini Directs now, and there's Indie World Showcases. So they're definitely trying to build out the Direct brand by adding more and more. But this is definitely like the iPod Mini of the Nintendo Directs. It was only 8 minutes long. They only showed, I think, like 3 or 4 games. They were all like partnership games. They weren't necessarily like first-party Nintendo titles. So you didn't get Breath of the Wild 2 or Smash Bros. Stuff. But they did start off with Cadence of Hyrule. It's getting 3 major DLCs coming out, with character DLCs where you can play as Shadow Link, and you can play as Shadow Zelda, and you can play as a couple other characters. You can play as Impa. I can't remember all the characters off the top of my head here, but so that was one of the DLCs. They also got there's new songs coming, and that's a separate DLC where you can play different songs, and the world will react to different songs, so you can kind of choose which songs you're listening to while you're playing, which I think is really cool. And then last but certainly not least, they talked about for Cadence of Hyrule DLC that there's going to be a story campaign all centered around like Majora's Mask and the Lost Kid, Skull Kid. They're gonna, yeah, so there's a whole new story DLC that's coming out where you can play like several bosses as you know, the Majora's Mask kind of characters. So that was cool. I'm looking forward to that. I played Cadence of Hyrule on my stream. I really enjoyed it. I've always secretly I never played Crypt of the Necrodancer, but I've always been interested in it. Just thought it was a unique concept, and the fact that they just added a Zelda skin to it, I thought was really cool. So I'm looking forward to those DLCs. The first one I think dropped yesterday, or whenever the Nintendo Direct Mini was, and then several more DLCs are coming throughout the year. League of Legends has a new character, and while I don't play League of Legends anymore, I still follow along with every time they release a new character, because I think there's like an escalation with every new character they have. They come out with like a song or a longer trailer, and I think they're trying to compete with Overwatch, which has probably the industry standard for introducing new characters with Pixar level like trailers that really give the character depth. And so they had a new character named Yoni, and he's apparently associated with Yasuo. I watched the 10-minute video, and I really liked the art style of it, and it really went into the backstory of these characters, which I thought was really cool. Again, I haven't played League in at least half a decade, if not a full decade. It's been a long time for me, but I still recognized Yasuo, and I liked the new character and the kind of like brotherly bond that they have. So I thought it was really cool and interesting. So I'll have a link down in the description below. Let me know who your favorite League of Legends character is, just for fun. Ghost of Tsushima, PlayStation continues to tell us how many sales they have after 3 days for each of their new titles, and we have the numbers for Ghost of Tsushima. Ghost of Tsushima sold worldwide 2.4 million units in the first 3 days. So for those of you keeping track at home, that's not quite as big as God of War or Spider-Man or Last of Us, which we know the numbers for. God of War 2018 was 3 million. Spider-Man was 3.3, and then Last of Us was 4 million. So not quite as big as those other ones, which are like established IPs, but I think they were saying a line about how this is like the most sold first, new IP game that PlayStation's put out. So 2.4 million, I'm excited for it. I talked about my review of it last week, or not my review, but my initial thoughts of it last week. And I'm actually going to be playing it right after this. So check it out. Ubisoft has been having a lot of problems. I think we've been learning about this all month. Ubisoft is really being targeted. Well, not targeted. Is being targeted, rightly so, for their culture of like sexual abuse and misconduct. I think there was an article this week about how they wanted to undersell Cassandra in Assassin's Creed Odyssey because, quote, women don't sell. Pretty vulgar stuff. And then lots of stories about, women being mocked when they weren't in the room, and just a bunch of really gross stories. So all of this stuff actually came out before the Ubisoft Forward, and they said they weren't going to address it there. And now we're just getting more and more articles about all this terrible stuff that's happening with Ubisoft. The president Ives Guillemot or something like that, he said like, oh, they've let me down, and so some people aren't really seeing that as a good enough response. And it's just systemic throughout the whole culture. So hopefully things are changing. I think I saw a few articles about incentivizing people to make positive like bonuses are going to be tied to positive workplaces and creating that. So but just some pretty crappy stuff that's been, or pretty terrible stuff that's been happening at Ubisoft, and just wanted to call that out because it's some pretty gross stuff, and the whole women don't sell thing. Like, I'm pretty sure I'm playing as female Eivor in Assassin's Creed Valhalla. I definitely played as Cassandra for my playthrough of Assassin's Creed Odyssey, so I was more excited than I was deterred by having a female protagonist in an Ubisoft game. So yeah, I don't know what they're talking about. I think people want to see more females on the covers of their video games, so I don't know why anybody would think that is a bad thing. Another group of people is also in hot water this week. The Army. I think I talked about this last week. They've been slowly doing more and more terrible things, like banning people for talking about war crimes in their chat. They had like fake giveaways that led to recruiting sites, and now they are completely off Twitch. They have decided to step away from Twitch, and they're no longer going to be streaming on Twitch. Which is great. Thankfully, they are not doing really gross things, trying to recruit people. So that is great. It's actually gotten to the point where Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez is like going after them. AOC is going after them to make sure this doesn't happen anymore. I think the Navy is also like backing away from their Twitch channel, because they were getting the same kind of issues and doing the same kind of stupid shit. So yeah, so hopefully we get some government regulation saying that this isn't cool, and that, you know, you can't have recruiting platforms on your video game streaming service. So thankfully that won't be happening anymore, and I'm glad to see it gone. Moving right along, there was a cool Humble Bundle this week. This one is all about Daedalic, which is the studio behind the up-and-coming Golem game, which is where I recognize the name from. But they have a Humble Bundle, which is, you know, if you want to see more of what they've done in the past. There was a couple of them that I recognized on there, and a couple more that I thought looked cool. Iritus is in the highest tier for the Humble Bundle, and it was the like Darkest Dungeon, but you play as the bad guys game. I think I've talked about that one before. I thought that was a really cool idea, and I've been obsessed with Darkest Dungeon lately. They had the Suicide of Rachel Foster, which I think is a walking simulator type of game, kind of like Gone Home or Edith Finch. So I remember that being on my list at some point. And then there's the Pillars of the Earth game, which I think is like a Telltale story-driven narrative, choice-driven narrative game. So those are all the games that kind of caught my eye. I'm thinking of picking up the Humble Bundle because I always like Humble Bundles as well. I think I've showcased a couple of them on my news reports before, but I'm looking forward to potentially doing that. And I'm looking forward to their Golem game because I also like the Lord of the Rings IP. Coming out of Comic-Con, we got just a single 1-minute video coming out of Comic-Con that just lit a fire on the Twitters. So it was coming from G4 TV. It was at G4 TV, and it was just a video said, "We've been here the whole time," or always playing games, something like that. And they just showed a 1-minute video of, like, you know, slowly going through a kind of like a warehouse somewhere until it just brought up Pong. So that's very cool. I am really interested in this. I remember watching, so for those of you who don't know, G4 TV was a TV channel dedicated to playing video games and having video game content, as well as like tech content and a few other like cultural TV shows. And it went under. I think the channel closed in 2014, so it hasn't been around in a while, but it definitely was one of the channels that was probably the only channel I watched when I was a kid growing up. I just really loved it, especially in like my teen years, like when we had a bajillion channels on DirecTV. I remember just turning on to Tech TV and watching Tech TV and watching Attack of the Show with Adam Sessler and Morgan Webb, I believe, were the hosts. And then, like, you know, Olivia Munn was on there, and she had her own show talking about video games. So I'm really excited for G4 to come back. They said it was coming in 2021, and I'm excited to see what's coming out of that. For those of you who watch me or watch this every week, you got to know that I love Overcooked. It's one of my favorite games, and Overcooked is one of the announcements this week was that Overcooked is coming to PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X. It's called the All You Can Eat edition, and it is both 1 and 2 with some extra DLC and story content all in one game for next-gen consoles. And I think it has crossplay, which I thought was super interesting. This might be the first Xbox PlayStation crossplay game ever, which, correct me if I'm wrong down below, but I'm excited for that. I love Overcooked, and I'm super excited to see it on next. Last but certainly not least, the Samurai Jack video game, which I think I've talked about on a previous game. Samurai Jack Battle Through Time is finally got a release date this week. They had a 2 to 3 minute trailer showing off the art style of the game. I think we'd seen it for a brief moment previously on previous trailers, but the game is releasing August 25th. So again, just around the corner. My August is going to slowly fill up with games, and I'm excited to play some games coming this August. So I was late to the party with Samurai Jack. I think my friends all watched it back when it first came out, and I didn't get into it back until Season 3 came out. I watched all of Season 1 and 2, and then before Season 3 came out, and then I watched Season 3. And it's a great show. I'm looking forward to playing through the story or a different story in Samurai Jack Battle Through Time, facing a coup, and they showed off a bunch of the characters, like DiMaggio's Scottish warrior, and a bunch of the other all your favorite characters. So I'm looking forward to playing Samurai Jack Battle Through Time on August 25th. That's it for the week. Quite a long week, but I'm excited to talk about the video game news, and there's a lot to cover this week. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this content. If you do, follow, like, and subscribe to me on YouTube and Twitch so you can see more great content like this. Thanks again. I hope you have a super day. I hope you have a super week. And I hope you have a super day. Bye!